The opposite was, of course, the only episode where things go really right for George.
That's where George decided to do the opposite of what he did, of everything. If nothing works, he'll just do the opposite.
My favorite part of that was in the coffee shop scene, the line, if everything you do is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right. Which, you know, even as the character, I knew I was just leading him down the primrose path, you know, but that was always fun for me to do, to kind of pave the way when he has an awful idea. I want to do as best as I can to get him to pursue it for my own entertainment.
Well, here's your chance to try the opposite. Instead of tuna salad and being intimidated by women, chicken salad and going right up to them.
Yeah, I should do the opposite. I should.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
It was the perfect George Costanza episode, and George being my favorite character, it opened my eyes and got me. It completely swayed me. I just loved the fact that I'd almost thought, why hadn't they done this before? It seemed to make so much sense.
What's interesting is that line was used on the pilot.
Never do what your instincts tell you. Always, always do the opposite.
This is how you operate.
Yeah, I wish. I will do the opposite. I used to sit here and do nothing and regret it for the rest of the day. So now I will do the opposite, and I will do something. Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice that you were looking in my direction.
Oh, yes, I was. You just ordered the same exact lunch as me.
My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live with my parents.
George is doing the opposite of what he would ordinarily do the entire episode, and it's all working out for him. He gets the girl, he gets the great job.
I know people that have done it. I mean, it became a philosophy for real people in real life who prospered. They literally said, my instincts are absolutely wrong. Everything I do is wrong. So I'm going to do the opposite of what I think I should do and see what happens. And I know a handful of guys that tried that for a considerable period of time and really prospered from it. And I thought, all right, there you go.
Things start going great for George, and then everything turns sour for Elaine at the same time.
I love playing sort of more of a sad sack loser. Although I think, you know, nothing, in reality, nothing really ever worked out that well for Elaine or any of these characters. Nothing ever really ended happily or successfully for anybody, unless, of course, it was at somebody else's expense.
Can't you see what's happened? I've become George.
Don't say that.
It's true. I'm George. I'm George.
There's this legendary thing amongst comedians and comedy writers of these bootleg Buddy Rich tapes. Buddy Rich was very famous for doing shows, and he was a drummer, and he had this big band, and he would do the shows, and he would get on the bus, and he would excoriate all the players in the band for playing too loud. And somebody in the back of the bus, his tour bus, one day turned on the tape recorder and recorded these absolutely florid, inspired rants of pure rage and frustration and hostility at the players. In the opposite episode, when George confronts the guy who's talking too loud in the movie theater.
What are we going to do? Should we just move?
It won't be necessary.
Shut your trap and stop kicking the seats! We're trying to watch the movie! And if I have to tell you again, we're gonna take it outside and I'm gonna show you what it's like! You understand me?
Now shut your mouths or I'll shut them for you. And if you think I'm kidding, just try me. Try me. Because I would love it!
No one could write that. Only Buddy Rich could think of threatening someone with physical violence in that kind of terminology. Why don't we step outside and I'll show you what it's like.
One of the great things about doing these shows is that you can act out a lot of stupid little fantasies that you may have had at some point in your youth or your life or whatever. And certainly working for the Yankees in some capacity was a fantasy of mine when I was a teenager. Or, well, wouldn't it be great if I could work for the Yankees? You know, because what could I do with my life? Or even when I got out of college, why can't I get a job with the Yankees? You know, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'd like to work for the Yankees, you know.
I remember we originally did try and get the real George Steinbrenner. We failed.
Yeah, I didn't know the Seinfeld show that well. I used to watch it, but I didn't know it that well.
In order to do Steinbrenner, we actually first have to get Steinbrenner's permission. And that was not forthcoming until Jerry called him up, and he thought we were making fun of him because George is called George. So he didn't really interpret it the right way. So Jerry had to tell him that, no, George, this is the way, this had nothing to do with you. So he gave us permission to do it.
And if you can't poke fun at yourself, you know, you're not much.
And then we needed somebody to do the voice. So we were talking about, well, how, you know, who's going to do this voice? And Jerry and I were talking. So what do you think it sounds like? And I said, well, you know, I think the character kind of, you know, he kind of talks like that, and he should sound like that. And hey, George, pass the calzone.
And Larry was so hilarious doing the voice, and he really created this very caricatured, this very mercurial personality who's just completely all over the place and neurotic.
And Jerry said, well, why don't you just do it? And I said, okay, fine, you know. So that was that.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I wish I could say the same, but I must say, with all due respect, I find it very hard to see the logic behind some of the moves you have made with this fine organization. In the past 20 years, you have caused myself and the city of New York a good deal of distress, as we have watched you take our beloved Yankees and reduce them to a laughingstock, all for the glorification of your massive ego.
Hire this man.
I guess they did a pretty accurate job. Nobody likes to admit they're quite like that, but I guess I was.